So you can see the path behind me, and we are all on some kind of path, some kind of life trajectory, but many of us are pursuing some kind of spiritual path, or some people are pursuing several spiritual paths at any one time. I'm going to talk a little bit about that journey, particularly in regard to initiation and self-initiation, and a little bit about the problems and possibilities of both. And stay to the end, because I'm going to talk about what I think you should be doing. What is the ultimate path of initiation that we should all be seeking, or that we should all be on? I'm Angel Miller, the author of The 3 Stages of Initiatic Spirituality and The Path of the Warrior Mystic, and Transcend the Chaos. We live in a time of chaos, of course, which is both good and bad. Chaos is, of course, all potential for bad things to happen and for incredible things to happen. And that, of course, is very much the spiritual path, as well as the regular material path that we must tread. Well, from my experience, I have joined various orders and traditions over the years, spanning back more than 3 decades, probably more, 3.5, 4 decades almost. And many of them have been very colorful, very interesting. You meet interesting people along these paths, but almost without exception, one discovers that the people running it are often not what you would imagine or hope to find in a spiritual tradition. I think it's true to say that many people have joined esoteric traditions only to discover that they have in actual fact joined something closer to a fundamentalist religion. And that even goes, I would say, for chaos magic. There were many good points about the Illuminates of Thanatos that I joined when I was 19, but there was also a dogmatic element to it as well, at least not with everyone, but with certain people, and one person in particular who almost took it as a fundamentalist religion, when it should have been much more about creativity and thinking outside the box, and not having any sort of dogma, or at least kind of limiting the dogma and making it much more about an exploration of the spiritual and the esoteric and the mystical and the magical. In many organizations, the problems are not one of manipulation, though that certainly occurs, but it can be a little bit more pedestrian than that, and can be that simply the teachers or the head people don't seem to be as spiritually inclined as one might hope or imagine, and do not seem to have any great wisdom. So typically we join esoteric orders to explore mysteries that aren't available to us in daily life, and to kind of discover what mysteries and energies and invisible forces are underpinning the world that we live in day to day, often through various symbols that are revealed, various occult symbols, and their meanings are explained to us, or through various practices, often involving some kind of trance state, or gnosis, as it might also be called, or some kind of elevated state where things are revealed to us or through us, through our own mind or ecstasy, or some part of our mind, perhaps connecting to the Jungian collective unconscious. Then we discover that there is a kind of dogma that wasn't revealed to us when we were not a member. Or very often what happens, of course, is it is expressed to us that this is a very open-minded, intellectual, spiritual group of the elite. When you actually join, you discover that many of the people involved are not that smart, and the leader or group leader, however we might express it, the adept, the hierophant, whatever it is much more dogmatic, and not only is unwilling to entertain ideas from other spiritual traditions, which is okay, since they have their beliefs. You can't believe everything, but may even be hostile to actual facts discovered by historians or archaeologists or linguists, and will say, no, you can't believe that, we don't believe that. And these are not matters of belief, but matters of exploring actual facts, provable facts. You can try to disprove them, you can prove them, but you cannot say that you shouldn't believe. And of course, at this point we should ask ourselves, what have we been initiated into, and is it really worth it? And nevertheless, there is something about a tradition, whether the group leader, often as in the world of business, for example, often it is the most psychotic person who rises up. We should not think that spiritual leaders are immune to this sort of self-serving and to problems of personality. They are usually not. But what about the tradition itself? Does it have something of value? Take Freemasonry, for example. The leaders in Freemasonry, in my experience, are usually not sort of psychotic and manipulative, but usually are not especially esoterically inclined, usually not particularly spiritual. The esoteric and the spiritual tends to be a concern of more of the members, or of certain members, and maybe they have their own groups, or they join the Societas Rosicruciana, which is only allows regular Freemasons to join, or they join some other esoteric society beyond that. So, well, is it a problem that they don't, the leaders of Freemasonry are not often spiritual, or not esoterically inclined, or they don't know about Jungianism, or they don't understand symbolism? And in my opinion, it's actually not a problem, and it might even be a good thing. And that is, Freemasonry has another aspect, and that is really socializing young men in particular, and making them functioning human beings in society. And although my inclination might be, or my interest might be towards the spiritual, the philosophical, the artistic, whatever it may be, it's actually a good thing to be forced to talk about more mundane things, things that I'm not particularly interested in. Someone's son is playing baseball at college or whatever. Not necessarily my thing, but it's good that you are able to socialize with all kinds of people and develop as a normal, healthy, functioning member of society. And the exploration of the symbols is something you can do yourself. But does that mean that Freemasonry is essentially a self-initiation, or is self-initiation valid or the only way? Well, certainly I think we can compare it to a college and to education, which are two very different things, of course. So, you could study mathematics, for example, or art or music, or whatever it may be, and become so brilliant that you end up with a Nobel Prize for that, or at the very least you become a very respected person in the field of mathematics or music or art or literature. But you could not claim that you went to Yale, or you went to Oxford University, or you went to Harvard, or wherever it is, if you studied by yourself. And I think spirituality is a little bit like that. So you could self-initiate into the tradition created by the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, but that would not mean that you are a member, and you would not be a member of the order itself unless you took initiation into that order. In the same way that you could teach yourself to become a fine art painter, you could get good at it, develop a certain level of skill, but that wouldn't mean that you are a member of a college, that you went to Central St. Martin's or Chelsea or Parsons in New York or anything like that. So joining a tradition is different to joining an institution, and there are pros and cons to both. The con, obviously, of joining an organization is that you might find yourself under the thumb of someone who's actually very dogmatic, and maybe just as dogmatic as any fundamentalist religious teacher, in fact. But at a certain point, a group becomes important and human contact becomes important within whatever field we are studying. I've just been reading Ingrid Fisher's book on the Germanic soul and Jungian psychology, and she points out that during the medieval period, a king would grasp the hand of one of his warriors, and the warrior would feel it like an electricity going up his arm. And she talks about this in relation to hamingja, which is translated from the Old Norse to mean luck. But it isn't luck in the same way that we think of luck, that you find $10 or 10 pounds on the floor and you think, oh, that's great luck, or you lose 10 pounds or $10 and it's bad luck and it's just sort of random and it's just chance. Rather, a hamingja is something you cultivate your luck. It's almost like an independent or semi-independent force, something that you can cultivate and make stronger, that will attract things to you or repel things perhaps, and something that you can even pass on partially to other people. So your luck gets passed on to others, and when the king grasped the hand of his warriors, they would feel this hamingja, this luck, passing into them, so that the king shared this with them. And I think in relation to organizations in general, no doubt, but particularly when we think of, let's say, Freemasonry, there is a point in the ritual where the master of the lodge will grip the hand of the initiate, of the person going through the initiation rituals, entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason. And so there has been this tradition going back centuries where there's not just an intellectual transference, but also a physical touch, where one initiator has touched the hand of the initiated, who then goes on to become an initiator and grip the hand of another initiated person, who in turn becomes an initiator. So there is a physical link going back several centuries at least. And I don't think we can deny the importance of that, particularly perhaps in a world that tends to want us to be isolated and atomized, and to just do things online, and to join online groups, but not to have any kind of physical association with each other. Now, whether it's the case in Freemasonry that they are transferring some kind of hamingja is of course up for debate. So whatever group you join, I think it is worth thinking about this concept of hamingja. Who are they exactly, and what are they sharing with you? And it may almost be a kind of physical thing, but certainly if there is defeatism and a feeling that they are oppressed or held down, or that they can't achieve, or by an accident of birth that they are never going to be anything, that's probably a very unhealthy group to be a part of. Or if the leader is dogmatic and says, you can't believe these facts that have been proven, because we don't believe that in our group, the hamingja is going to be pretty low. It's going to be draining from you, not giving to you. And there are of course spiritual groups out there that end in absolute disaster, or that drain the individual, taking from them intellectually, not allowing them to become themselves. Now, that poses the question of what spiritual path should we be seeking. And I studied art, so I tend to relate things to art. I studied art decades ago, and in a good art college, especially ones that are really trying to turn you into a great artist or a great designer, you will study, of course, traditions, whether it's traditions of fine art, painting or sculpture or fashion or whatever it may be. But at a certain point, you will be encouraged, if not absolutely expected, to develop your own style and become yourself. And I think this is the thing in spirituality. Yes, you can join these groups, and you will get benefits from them. Hopefully, in some cases, perhaps not. But they should be able to give you something, some kind of awareness, some kind of insight, some kind of experience, if nothing else, that you can reflect on later on. And once you've integrated this into you, hopefully you can transcend it and pursue your own vision, not as something kind of quirky and novel, but really instead as trying to get back to the authentic, to try to draw out of you something that is deeply embedded in the human psyche, and even, as Jung would say, the collective unconscious. To use another analogy, well, look at the light. So we want to be in the light, revealing, drawing from the light and revealing the light. But another analogy, of course, is writing. As an author of multiple books and as an editor, that's a kind of initiatic process in itself. And first of all, you absorb some things. You may have noticed that many authors, particularly on spirituality, I think, or maybe self-help as well, tend to write the same book over and over again. And there may be reasons for that, sort of problems built into the way the publishing industry works, but also the desire to keep being an expert and keep churning out books and to keep appealing to the same audience rather than to grow. I think that's certainly an issue that we find. But what happens when you write? Originally you take on board some kind of information and you try to make sense of it, and people get stuck in that phase. They get stuck in constantly just regurgitating it. They write 10 books on the Golden Dawn, or 10 books on Wicca, or 8 books on the runes, and they're all basically the same. They're all basically saying the same thing. They're just kind of rehashing. They take they have a book with 10 chapters in it. They take 6 of those, they reword them a little bit, take out a few of the chapters, add a couple more, and they have a new book. And I think personally, as with spirituality, the purpose of writing is to push beyond what you know, to keep pushing into the unknown, and to manifest in a concrete way the absolute truth that is embedded within you, which is archetypal, or in some kind of collective archetype that or collective unconscious that is true, that it has value in itself, that is not just ideas, it's not just something we made up, but we are expressing in a new way something that is ancient or primordial or even beyond the human somehow, something that is integral to life itself, maybe in the animal kingdom, the mineral kingdom, whatever it's, vegetable kingdom, something that is inherent to life itself. And that's not easy. Even writing books or writing is an initiation. Art is an initiation. Spirituality is an initiation. But people get stuck in the traditions. The tradition should be there to launch you, in a sense. And yes, there are these teachers who are not very good. Some of them are unscrupulous, and they take advantage of their students, particularly female students, of course. Attractive female students are usually, or very often, a target for sexual harassment and sexual demands, or subtle demands for sexual favors. And so, yes, there are these bad teachers for sure. There are manipulative individuals out there, and there are just people who had these organizations who are not profound. In some cases, I think the latter is quite okay if they are preserving a tradition and it's benefiting you and it's helping you to be more integrated into society and to be more of yourself and more confident. That's all good. But at a certain point, regurgitating the tradition, tinkering with it, I found another little way to do some kind of magical technique. That's all just a lot of nonsense. and it's sort of failure to launch. These traditions are there to launch you, for you to become you, the real you. But paradoxically, as you become the real you, you're also manifesting something that is, deeply embedded in the world, in the sort of forces that underlie the world, and are giving a new expression to something that is beyond us, and that is the point. And that takes guts. It also takes a lot of self-reflection, and it actually might take knowing people who are intelligent and who have been through a lot of experiences themselves. It's not necessarily the case that they would all be spiritual initiates, but they would all be people who have experienced things and have developed a kind of wisdom. So seek wisdom and seek people who are wise, and keep pushing beyond and try to manifest your own genius, the ancient Greek daemon, in some way, though it may not be easy. Well, check out angelmiller.com if you want to know more about me, and I'll see you again